Interesting changes though, I guess. Well, like, I guess just heavy resource space or Fury Warriors, but with a different name. I don't know, man. You're going over there. What's up, Odin and Ruben? Yeah, I've got interesting changes come through, I guess. Got enhancement changed a lot. I don't know if I can really say much to settle anyone's fears on it. Oh, they're giving us an AoE spell called Chain Lightning. That's pretty interesting, actually. Still not got anything back on whether we're getting fine over still, or if that's just dead. Though I guess it is. I suppose we only got one expansion with it. That might be a bit better. I'll just turn that up. Yeah, it's a preview, but it's like a full resource change. You got to consider like it's a full rework to how we play the game now. Like, the talent's going to have to do so much work to make Maelstrom work properly. We've lost Lightning Bolt. We've lost the static damage. So, we're basically turning into Fury Warriors with a different colour bar. We've got Lava Lash, this is Wild Strike, and we've got proc that is basically Raging Blow. But instead of it coming from Bloodthirst, it's coming from random procs on Windfury and so on. I mean, it's interesting as to whether or not Mastery or Haste will end up being better now, because obviously we're getting the procs from Haste with more attacks, but we're getting the Mastery, which increases the chance of the procs. So we've got like a hand-in-hand thing there to decide. We've got to find out that's more in numbers. The talent that they shown us was pretty much sort of eye candy to see whether or not everyone would be happy about it. But nothing actually tells us how the game's going to work for us. We kind of need a bit more. But from the looks of it, I mean, the artifact's focusing on Feral Spirit, but we've not heard anything about that. If it just stays as is, it's not going to be that great either. Though I wonder whether or not this Chain Lightning is going to cost Maelstrom as well, so we're going to have to spend Maelstrom to then spend more Maelstrom to do AoE. Are we going to be able to pool that much? I mean, we're going to be generating it pretty fast if it's coming out every auto, but is that going to be enough to sustain AoE like we have now? Are we just going to lose the whole AoE aspect? Are we going to stay single target now with all of this stuff? Are we going to just be cleave with this chain lightning mechanic? Like, how far down is it going to go? Because there's a lot of stuff that we have that we lose Unleash. We're losing Unleash pretty much, and it's turning into Unleash / Flame Shock. But we have to stay in melee to make the Flame Shock work. From the looks of it, we haven't got shocks at all now. I'm guessing all the stuff like Liquid Magma and everything like that stays in talents, so we can't judge whether or not that stays there or not. Ascendant's not been mentioned, so either that stays the same or it goes. Couldn't guess. I mean, I can't say what's gone or not. They've made our totems. They've made it sound like our totems don't need projection anymore, so that talent has to go completely. Like, there's no way that that's there anymore. And they made it so we can have multiple of the same element, but, I mean, the ones they've mentioned, none of them are particularly wonderful anyway, so it doesn't matter whether we can have more than one up. We don't want more than one up. We don't empower our allies, though, but that's never what enhancement is meant to be. It's supposed to be like, we enhance ourselves, that's the idea. We enhance ourselves with the elements, that's the goal. Which I guess still, that's really there with that. They're going with the Rock Biter and so on, elements doing something, but whether that's even a thing, I don't know. The totem tier can't stay. Maybe we keep Call of the Elements if they make totems more of a thing. Who knows? Okay, the totem tier I can't see staying. I guess the first two are probably going to stay. I mean, they've said that they want more passive proc and active, so you can see some of them shifting around. Like, you can say Echo's a proc, essentially, with the way that it's going to be working now. We'll be able to store up 2 charges of Storm Strike, and that's going to be like the Lava Lash procs now, as Swiftness is the passive and Elemental Mastery is the active. But you can see other ones, you're not even sure. Unleash Fury can't exist anymore if Unleash Elements is gone, because that's basically been replaced by Flame Tongue. Cry. They've not given us much context. They haven't told us how much we can store. They haven't told us exactly how much we can build up. I think the proc rate on this Storm Fury mechanic is really low, but that scales with Mastery and Haste, I suppose, at the same time. So, depending, that could work. I'm not happy that Windfury is a really low proc chance still with minor damage. I'm mega unhappy that we're getting Storm Strike that is lightning enhancement on our strikes but stays physical, so they keep it off the mastery scaling for no reason. But that's why they've added the Storm Fury in, so we get a bit of like mix and match on scaling for both of them. But for the gameplay stuff, like, I don't think it adds much to what we've got right now. We've lost basically everything we have right now in lieu of a filler, a spam filler that's Rock Biter, a Flame Shock with a different name, because that's just going to be used on cooldown. It's Flame Shock plus Unleash. Windfury's still not wonderful. looking at that. But then we don't have numbers on that, so like that's hard to judge. It's just the words they've used haven't been brilliant. Lava Lash is Wild Strike. Storm Strike is Raging Blow. And then we have pretty good Maelstrom generation if we have a way of spending it properly, which I don't know. And we've got no word on Fire Nova. We've got AoE with this Chain Lightning mechanic, and Sundering is... Well, it's going to look cool, I guess, but it's not going to be a wonderful spell. For now, anyway. I mean, it's... that you can liken it to Thunderstorm. People don't want to use Thunderstorm to knock things to the side, so if you took that, you'd have to glyph it to not knock things. You don't want to displace things in AoE. Unless you have to, and then knocking them to either side without much control is really awkward. I mean, Fire Nova and Lava Lash and Flame Shock was like the best part, like the most streamlined part that Enhancement had this expansion. It was even like one of the best developed parts last expansion, and it's completely gone in exchange for focusing on mechanics that haven't been great for 4 expansions since they've been in. Storm Strike's not been wonderful. I suppose since they're not keeping the glyphs, and it's the are they still called glyphs, where we just we put a glyph on the spell? That might be there, since they can put that for everything. Then for every spell that we get, we might be able to like mitigate how much of an effect the negatives on Sundering would be. But say they said they ballparked 150 new talents, so you cut that down to what across everything is like 12 new talents per class. You cut that between specs, that's 4 new talents per specs, like completely spitballing on that. But if Sundering's one of them, then there's not that many other spots for Maelstrom tied stuff. Yeah, so the Chain Lightning thing, I think that's something they should have really put into the blog, because we need more info on how that works. Since we have Chain Lightning right now and it costs Maelstrom charges to use it basically for Enhancement, I can only assume that it would cost it Maelstrom to use it there as well. So we're going to have to pull Maelstrom to use Chain Lightning to spend more Maelstrom to AoE. And then hope that we get procs for Storm Strike to then AoE with Storm Strike, since it's the better spell. Although it might not be the better spell because we don't have mastery scaling on it at all. Even though it's a lightning based attack for... yeah, that's choice of theirs. I mean, it has potential. They can make it work. Arakai. Like, they can make it work, but it seems like so much effort to completely gut everything that we've got right now and build it up with this new one. The Storm Fury proc chance seems really, really low. Even considering Mastery, because I mean, if you consider right now in Mythic Gear in Hellfire, we've got 60% Spell Power Mastery. If you go for that, that puts you at what, 7%? 7.5% chance to trigger Storm Fury, so that's a 9% chance to reset your Storm Strike. You're going to need that up whenever you use it with this kind of importance on it. Especially if you want to AoE. And given that these are your attacks, I mean, I suppose it could work like Fire and Brimstone, where each attack when we AoE cleave with it, we're going to constantly be proccing, and that would be really cool actually, if they do it like that. It's just whether or not the setup becomes too much. Because as we've got right now, even now you see people complain there's way too much setup on our AoE in some circumstances where we can't keep up with other people who, like someone presses Bladestorm, they add to dead before you do anything. So we could have that exact same problem with this, but I mean it can work. It's just there's not enough information they've released for us compared to some other blogs to judge a massive rework like this. On the artifact traits, there was only 1 or 2 active abilities I saw on a few of the trees. I think there was a leaked one for Doomhammer somewhere that showed Feral Spirit as the active, sorry, as one of the bonuses, which was tied to like the BRF bonus. I had it somewhere. Whether I can find it or not, that's going to be a nightmare. But what our active ability on that, I don't know. I'd hope that it's something interesting. Oh, here it is. So there you've got Spirit Fusion, which is this one here, which is basically the BRF 4-piece. And the active ability, which is this one here, I think based on the Warlock preview they gave, is a wolf again. So whether or not that's something extra, I couldn't hazard a guess as to what that is. Yeah, they've basically changed it from having cooldowns on how we do our spells to just having a spammed filler in Rockbiter that we're going to press over and over and over again to get some Maelstrom. I mean, I guess we're going to generate Maelstrom really fast, so we're going to be doing that, and it's going to be Rockbiter, Lava Lash, Rockbiter, Lava Lash over and over again until you get procs to do Storm Fury, and just keep it on cooldown. I mean, Storm Fury is also... Storm Strike's incorporating Echo into it by having no cooldown when you use it with a proc. So maybe even Echo's gone, which would... I mean, it would make sense for Echo to go since nothing's really got any cooldowns anymore. Which would be a shame because Echo was a good talent. It worked well with the toolkit that we have, but it probably doesn't have a place with this stuff. Which would then mean that there's some other talents we have that are a bit dead weight, and if there's not that many talents coming in for us, how many can they really take away and fill in? I mean, we're obviously going to have some shared talents with the other Shaman ones. No, I'm not great with OBS yet, but it's but we've got a... I'll copy the image into chat. But that's the Doomhammer picture that showed up, and I can only assume it's accurate. It looks very similar to the other talent trees that have shown around. I mean, it could easily just be another like fake leak and someone photoshopping, but it's all we have to go off right now until we actually get hands on the beta and get to see what's going on with these things. And I mean, if Windfury is still saying minor damage, if it's proccing that Windfury, that probably still isn't that great. It's not going to be that wonderful. Although 3 targets proccing it, I guess, is pretty good. So it's possible that some of this stuff, like the active wolf ability up in the top center on it, could easily be something tied to wolves generating Maelstrom. But then that would mean we generate way too much Maelstrom to spend realistically. Again, so I mean, I couldn't guess on something like that until I see more of what they show. I mean, the icons on the hammer look so accurate as to what it would be that I can see that being our weapon tree. I have more wonder as to whether we're losing any cooldowns. I mean, I personally am not a big fan of Fire Elemental anymore, but then again, I can't. What I've seen now, I'm wondering whether they would have the room to remove Primal Elementalist from the tree, and if they can't, then they have to keep Fire Elemental in. And there was mention that Elementals are Guardians now, which means that sounds like they're trying to keep them in. But having more of a focus on wolves, and I thought they might turn them back into pets like they were back in Wrath, and keep that kind of thing and keep a bit more active play into it. So I suppose they're really pushing the Thrall theme from HOTS into it. If we're keeping Feral Spirits and getting a focus on that, we're getting Sundering. They're making Chain Lightning an important spell, which was like everything about it seems like it's aiming that. Yeah, it looks like Searing Totem's gone. All of the dud totems are just going away. So I'd assume that if they keep Liquid Magma, it will just be a flat totem we use, like really early WOD beta. Because I'd like Magma to stay. It's a good spell design, as long as it doesn't pull an entire dungeon on its own. But they haven't mentioned stuff like utility and healing cooldowns and everything, so I can only assume that they're not really doing anything with that, or they are keeping that under wraps until we get to beta and see what they're doing with it. Though if guesses are right and we have a cap on 100 Maelstrom, that would make it pretty tight to manage it with the speed that we generate it. Well, Windfury was in the PvP tree, so I'm guessing that they're going to let PvP players get some form of Windfury totem, but I'm guessing that they're keeping that away from the PvE style. They don't want arbitrary class stacking. They've decided they don't want that. And I can't say whether I agree or disagree with it. I suppose it is annoying when you haven't got one. And then if you give everyone one, then it makes it not important anymore, so... And it makes it hard to balance with the melee if they've got Windfury totem in there. Sundering could look cool, I guess. They'd have to tune it properly because, I mean, it says it's physical damage as well, so that won't scale with our mastery, and it has no tie with the Storm Fury to offset the non-magic portions, like Storm Strike has. And for a talent, only dealing moderate damage and knocking back, you don't really want to knock things back when it's AoE'd. So, I don't know. Yeah, it looks like we've not got Flame Shock anymore. That's going straight to Elemental. And we're basically getting Flame Tongue, which is melee Flame Shock plus Unleash without the attack speed buff. The Chain Lightning stuff got mentioned in a tweet with someone speaking to the devs regarding it, saying that we'll just cast Chain Lightning and Lava Lash and Storm Strike is going to become AoE. It won't necessarily be like Fire Nova though, if you think, because Fire Nova, we set it up and then we don't need to be near the mobs anymore. We can just AoE away from it. If they run away, then we can still AoE. Whereas this, if we cast that, they come up, we get a spell off, and then they start spreading out, like, say, the dogs on Archimond, or like Tectus, when we weren't near the mobs necessarily, we could carry on AoE for that whole time. Whereas with this, as soon as you're away from it, we can't AoE at all anymore. Though that goes in the same vein as them removing the ranged attacks for rep, like Exorcism and Judgment not being as spammable and being more important. So I can understand them doing that. They don't want as many melee doing as much in ranged. Whether that's to offset the power creep of them not wanting Demon Hunters to be pushed out because they're going to be all melee and they're going to be dashing around remains to be seen. But it also could be that they're just pushing the fantasy for some melee, which again is understandable. I can see why they're doing that. Though I suppose part of it is semantics. It doesn't seem like there's any reason to call the filler Rockbiter when they could have just kept it as Stormstrike and then, say, made this big finisher Storm Blast or Elemental Blast or God knows whatever they want to come up with, just to be more interesting. Because Rockbiter is not... Like, Rockbiter is what I used to use to taunt ads off on Garrosh. It's what I used to put on when I was running a dungeon when I was level 20. It's not really like my filler spell to deal damage or generate resource. But it all just seems a little bit too much Fury Warrior to me, which isn't a great thing, because I'm not a big Fury Warrior fan. Especially not WoD Fury Warrior, which it looks like it's dangerously close to. I guess we lose Lightning Shield, which was pretty much nothing anyway, and Syrian Magma gone the way of the dinosaurs. We keep Fire Elemental. The wonder is, if they don't like melee doing range damage, does that mean that our Ascendance goes? Does it mean our Ascendance changes? That would be something interesting to hear or see. Not that we're like... I suppose that's way too specific to get information on. I guess we lose access to all of the cast spells like Lightning Bolt. I wonder then if that means that Elemental loses Chain Lightning. If it's our activator. Since it isn't mentioned in their blog at all. There's obviously room to give us raid utility. It's whether or not they can come up with something that they're able to actually make use of. If they can't make use of it, then giving us utility that never actually gets put into the game is pointless, isn't it? It seems pointless to leave Lightning Bolt in if we don't make any use of it. I mean, we're not going to sit and cast a 2-second Lightning Bolt to tag a mob, are we? Oh, it's Crash Lightning. Oh, okay. Oh, I read that wrong. I thought it was Chain Lightning. Right, okay, that makes much more sense. So it's basically Thunderclap with a different name. Right, I think our blog's probably one of the worst ones for not having any context for how the game plays. We really needed a bit more. But I suppose they have to concise it all into a blog to cover all 3 specs. But we majorly needed something more. Or we need the blog. Well, I suppose the beta is not that far out. But we need that to have a bit more context on how the game's going to play. Because it's going to change the flow of combat for us completely. It's going to change our damage peaks and rises. I mean, I guess I can only imagine that there's got to be something that gives us an increased cap if it's only 100, which would be a talent. Because I can't imagine managing only 100 Maelstrom and generating it as fast as it looks like we are. If Maelstrom procs are going to give us 15 and we're already getting 5 a go when we're filling our empties with Rockbiter, which is 15 as well, that means you hit Rockbiter, you auto attack, you get a Maelstrom proc, a Windfury proc, you suddenly get 35 out of nowhere. And I'm guessing we're still going to be attacking relatively fast. Unless they remove Flurry and then we go slow, and that makes Flame Tongue worse than it already is. Well, it makes Flame Tongue as bad as it already is on live at the moment, but with a different button we press. Well, we're getting something that procs off the finisher with the way that Stormfury works. Because that's going to proc and then we hit Stormstrike and then it resets the cooldown. So you're basically getting 30 Maelstrom for free. Because you're only casting Stormstrike at half the cost. But that's going to be our big proc. It feels a lot more hollow than managing Maelstrom weapon charges to just get a proc, press Stormstrike again, because it didn't cost anything. Or basically proc a brief window of you playing with Echo of the Elements again. But I'd really like to know what the fate of Fire Nova is. I guess it is gone, if they've given us this new AoE mechanic. Which is a shame. Yeah, there's no cooldown on Rockbiter, there's a frontal cone. We just aren't supposed to cap Maelstrom, which I guess is just standard resource rules. No particularly exciting tweets that have come out of that, really. Yes, is the Salt Stream raise cog. What else would it be? You saw my reaction when I first read it. I guess it might be to make the tank shaman be quiet. That would make me happy at least. Then I won't get a forum thread every time I log on to see it. Oh my goodness, the Shaman forums went wild when this went through. I haven't even looked. I guess I'm in the minority. Everyone seems to like this. Or maybe not. Maybe they like the elemental stuff. I haven't gone through it all. Oh, Healing Surge is going to cost Maelstrom for us, so I guess our off healing is going to be a little bit killed. I guess the lightning bolt existing for us, I suppose we can sit in a, like, if they have Shadow Lord discard too, and we can sit next to him shooting off at him while he's in the distance, but doesn't seem like there's any point in keeping it if they're that desperate to get rid of it. Yeah, I liked how Enhancements played by the late end, the back end of WoD. It's just that the numbers weren't great and the scaling was off, as we all know. And there are a few things that needed tweaking or refining, but it seems like they've gone the easier route of just axing absolutely everything. I was expecting a little bit less of this and a bit more of them taking some things out, like Unleash, and replacing it with like totems or something, because they seem to have like a real hard-on for totems. But instead, it's just all gone. It seems like it is really just simplifying the spec down to a base resource of build, spend, which isn't exciting at all. I mean, I'm not sure who they're trying to attract by changing it like this. Are the people who like are really interested in the spec but won't play it because it's not got a resource on it, or what? That seems a bit off to me. I guess like a flat damage reduction is fine. We can work on that, but whether or not we have any mechanics other than that to bring us into the future for Legion, it's gone for me. I mean, compared to say Elemental doesn't seem like they got almost any changes. Man, I don't know how I feel either. It's not been good. It's been like a roller coaster from start to finish when I read them. I don't know whether to feel good or bad or what. A zero cost attached in what way? All that I saw was that it's going to cost... Like, does that mean we can proc it to do zero, to cost zero? I guess that would work. I suppose, yeah, that is cool, yeah. Alright. That makes some sense. I think this is probably going to need quite a bit of work to make work properly for the people who play the class right now, at least. It might make it more competitive, though, I suppose, if you want to sink the time into it. The problem is if they do like a full rework like this and you don't want to invest the time into it, this is like the perfect time where there's all these other things to go and spend your time on. So if you push away the people who do play it, they're not going to be good at all. Oh, scaling it. I suppose that's good. We still get some self-healing then. Though no real raid healing, I guess. That's whether they want us to do that at all. I suppose we scared them off a bit in Throne with the amount of healing we did. So they might be a bit scared of doing that. I mean, all the changes that were predicted were pretty much bang on. Elemental gets mastery back. For the other specs at least. But for us, it's completely off base. I couldn't have predicted any of the things they changed here. Well, things like Rogue Soaking and DK's Mask Gripping, I mean, they've already shown some of those spells have been spread out a bit more. Like Hunters of Harpoon, which is basically like reverse life grip. You can see that they might be adding some of these things into other classes and spreading out a bit more. Whether or not it's us that get it, I highly doubt it is. But whether or not we get something on those lines, I don't know. I mean, they've taken away Stampede and Raw from balance and then they've given balance Innovate. I mean, that's them trying to spread out utility, so they've obviously identified that people need more. Just depends like where we, because there's only a limited amount of utility that a melee can have. They can either be rogues and live through everything. They can either have grip, or they can have stuns. Everyone's got an interrupt, so you can't count that. I mean, there's even now a ranged interrupt in melee with demon hunters, so, and they get damage out of theirs. So that's not really a thing. So it has to be something unique. And if Sundering's that, then I'm pretty much sold that that's worthless. We don't want to split ads up. Yeah, I've got a Google Doc ready to write some of this stuff into and put up. Whether it does anything or not when I send it to him, I don't know, but I will do over the next coming days. And I've got a video with Bay from Final Boss where we talk about what they've changed. A little bit less like hot-headed as soon as it comes out, so it'll be a bit more reasonable when a bit more information comes out as to what's going on. I suppose the empowering allies thing, they did actually say it, so I don't know. Unless they're riding the bloodlust thing and saying just that's it. But I can't see any of that in there. That has to be tied to talents. But I don't know. I couldn't guess whether or not they're afraid of doing too much, because they have been in the past. And the DK changes were good. I mean, I liked them. I mean, I played DK quite a bit, and I thought both of the changes, both of the specs changes were pretty good. I enjoyed the idea of how they were going to play. They're going to play a lot different though. But it seems like what they did, they kept the core and then they altered what surrounded it. Whereas for us, they kept what surrounded it and they altered the core, which seems like the wrong one. That's my choice though. Windfury just seems like everyone's completely stuck with it just because it's been there since vanilla, and they all think it's going to go back to one-shotting people in PvP, but it's not. It's just the most... out of all the passive proc aspects of classes, it is the weakest. It's worse than Combat's main Gosh. It's worse than deadly poison. It's even worse than razor ice for frost. It's just the worst. So I mean, even Windfury proc in Maelstrom, you're gonna get 15 out of a Maelstrom, Windfury proc, which is half a Lava Lash. If Lava Lash is good, then maybe that's good. Depends how lucky you are with procs, I guess. I guess there's no internal cooldown anymore, so you might get a good chance. I mean, the spell's iconic, but it's not iconic if they can't make it worthwhile. I mean, you're never going to go back to it doing the most amount of damage for us anymore, because it's far too RNG. It's not fun to rely on that. I mean, even if it does the most amount of damage in the world, if it only happens 1 every 100 swings, it's not fun for those other 99. You got to make gameplay fun in between. I mean, they're obviously going with the enhancing style with Lava Lash and Storm Strike, both elemental spell ties. Though Storm Strike's not been fully realised for whatever reason. And that seems to be their goal. Just seems like it's only half a blog, really. Say, like, I mean, I don't know how much Windfury could fit into gameplay past BC. Because even in BC, like, BC was just trying to force Windfury procs with Storm Strike timing based on the internal cooldown. That wasn't massively fun, but it was at least something that was at a time when, like, everyone was really stale gameplay. But now everyone's got something to pay attention to, got something to do, something to think about. Now you can't really build a spec around a proc completely random. Either it procs too rarely, and then it does quite a lot of damage, but you're left dead when it doesn't proc. Or it procs all the time, and then it's pointless when it does. I mean, totem twisting was something interesting just because, I mean, for the rest of the time, you're weaving 2 different shocks, which weren't exciting, and you were holding Storm Strike for the Windfury internal cooldown. There was nothing else to do with the rest of your globals, so it filled up the time. And you even compared that to the other melee, they were sat waiting around as well. So at least it gave us something. Past that, though, I mean, you took away Totem Twist and you turned Wrath, and Wrath sped everything up. Wrath gameplay was fine as well. It seems like in Wrath, when they changed us, we got a lot of different mechanics that were really, that like lasted from then till now. So you had Storm Strike being a much more like important damage spell with its debuff, and then you had Maelstrom turned in. Maelstrom's gone up and down as to how good it's been, and then you had the shot rotation. You had Lava Lash as a filler. Lava Lash changed from a filler to a finisher in Cataclysm, but all of that's gone with this. So that's, like, for me personally, I've played like 7 years worth of raiding with these mechanics, and they're all just completely gone out of the window on the spot. That's the longest time I think that they've left a rework to then just fully axe everything. Like I rolled to enhance in Sunwell, and it's been fun since then. I don't think I've ever had a legitimately unpleasant day to play, where I haven't enjoyed playing the game. And this could be fine as well. It could be until I get my hands on it. It's just very it's like when you bite into an apple and it's a bit sour. That's what reading that blog was. It just isn't nice. But it might be. I need to have way more context on it though. And there's other problems. There's almost no one from the There's no contact between us and the Shaman devs, so we have no idea. We had no idea how it was going. We have no way of knowing what they're doing. So it was completely out of the blue for us. I mean, the other classes have got like an inkling of what's going on, but we have absolutely no idea. I wonder how the elemental shaman are reacting. I can only assume it can't be that bad because it just looks like the same class. I suppose I'm interested as to how some of the other melees show up then. I'd like to see how outlaws and rogues go. And how far they're changing those specs, because if we're getting a change like that, then outlaw must be top to bottom completely different. No, mid to late Wrath, we weren't wonderful. All the while we were dying a lot, we just didn't have enough health to deal with mechanics because they tuned us like that. And ICC, we were on the low end. Well, fulmination stacks are gone, but it's just exactly the same in a Maelstrom bar. That's completely the same. Like, that change is just the same as the Arcane one, where they took away Arcane Charge and they put it in a bar for them for Arcane Charge, or like whatever it is, like this, a Soul Shard UI for them. It's the same thing. Because like you can use Earthshock at 8 fulmination charges and use it at 20, just like you can use it at 10 Maelstrom or 100. It's still the same spec. The only thing I can see different is that Flame Shot costs this resource. Otherwise, it's all the same. I wonder about Windwalker. They need to do something with Windwalker to make it... If everything else has to be toned down a bit, then Windwalker needs to have their specifics. Probably need to as well, because they've got some of the more complex mechanics. But I wonder what they can even focus on with Windwalker, because it's pretty unusual spec. Outlaw could be interesting though. In fact, rogues in general, I'd like to see how sub goes. I don't see how early has target switch burst on demand now anymore like with this any more than it did then. There's no changes on that at all. The way that Earthshock works now is the same as with this resource. It's just with a different name and a UI on it. But in terms of the melee, I'm also interested to see how they flip up like the warriors. Warriors do need to. Well, you say unload with Earthshot, you can stack up fulmination now and then dump. There's no difference as to what the name is, as to whether it's a bar or a weak ore that you're tracking stacks on. It's still the exact same. Well, shock cooldown doesn't change it. You're still not going to be able to generate enough Earth Shock. You're still going to have to just spam like you do now. It's you're going to cast this Earth Shock at say you have 90 pooled when an ad spawns. You fire it off, and then you go down to 0. The amount of time it would take to generate them back up would have been as long as the Earth Shock cooldown was, if it still existed. So it's going to be like 7, 8 casts to fully stack it up. Or not 7, sorry. Like 5 or 6. That's more than a 6-second cooldown. So you get those 2 Earth Shocks, but it would have been the same whether it had a cooldown or not. It's the exact same situation. The only difference that's changed is that, in fact, there is no difference. You still need to flame shot your target to get extra damage on Lava Burst. So, as it stands there, what they've shown, Elemental has changed nothing. They've just added a bar. So, that's how I saw it anyway. Like, when I look at that, there's nothing else. There's nothing new. Elemental needs way more on talents, because that is the exact same spec, just with a different caveat. In fact, it's probably, out of all the specs that I've seen in any of the blogs, the one that's changed the very least. Yeah, but even if you get more Maelstrom generation, it's still going to be, whether or not you had those, you got those extra Maelstrom stacks from Elemental Overload, it works the exact same as Fulmination with Chain Lightning. So you get those back up. You're going to have to do 2 casts still. Those 2 casts, it's going to be pretty much the same as that cooldown would have been in between. You aren't changing that much by removing this shot cooldown. The only advantage of having no cooldown is if you could like machine gun them back to back to back, which you can't, because you haven't got the Maelstrom to sustain it. It's like like the misperception that some people had with Echo. Like with Echo, people thought it was useless because there was no gain on having that extra charge, removing it from the proc where it had no cooldown. But you aren't considering the extra factors on it, that you can weave it. You lose less cooldown with that. It's the exact same with this. You aren't gaining cooldown by it, like gaining uses by it having no cooldown, because it still requires setup. And if you don't get the chance to that, if you have to do that setup, then it's going to waste time no matter what. There's nothing you can do to mitigate that, unless like you Earth Shock, you Lava Burst, you Lightning Bolt, then you get like an Overload proc, then you cast another, you get another Overload proc, and then you Earth Shock again. You're not going to be at max charges there, even with double procs. You're going to be, what, like 60? In fact, no, because it's only 75%. So you're going to be at, say, 50, and so that's a half strength Earth Shock. How do you know that your biggest hitter is Lava Burst? Isn't going to be that. Like, it looks the same. You have no numbers on that at all. That's really difficult to say. I mean, the only thing you have to judge that on is that one says strong and one says massive. One says strong and it's got 50% extra, so what's like 50% on strong? Is that super strong? Mega strong? Strong-gong-gong? Like, how specific? It might say on the blog, but you haven't got numbers to judge that. Like, if your strongest spell is something that requires resource generation, it doesn't matter how strong it is, because you're still going to have the build-up to cast it again. Like, put it this way: if you compare it to like another spell that is like the strong spell, which would be like Destruction's Chaos Bolt, you can pool Chaos Bolts, so you can machine gun Chaos Bolts at something. This you can cast one Frost Shock. If you changed it to like Chaos Bolt where you can cast one, and then you have to spam the Incinerates to then cast another Chaos Bolt, it won't be anywhere near as good as it is now. Which is basically what Earth Shock is in this situation. Our raid group's about 25, 26, something like that, at a guess. But we're on farm at the moment. During progress, it like fluctuated from 28 to 23. Depending on like which person decided that he wanted to quit or was angry about loot or whatever else they decided to not want to raid over, or whoever had an argument with who. $28 sounds really healthy for WoD. Like really, really healthy. Because there's a lot of guilds who are sort of struggling on the precipice, the cusp of almost disbanding because they haven't got enough people. So if you've got that many people who are sticking around to raid, even if they're getting benched, that's really impressive. If you're if still in progress anyway. I mean, that's probably a good amount to stick with for Legion. People will drop out. You'll always lose like 2 or 3 in the first week from people who've decided to go a bit too hard when they level and just burn out or doesn't bother. I have a reasonable understanding of everything because I play everything at least a bit. Like I have 17 100s. So I keep up it enough that I can know when something's going wrong. So I've got to work out where raid spots can go. If I wanna sneak into a raid, I need to know like where I can steal one from someone else when Enhancement has problems. So I keep up with that. 23 is still okay though, unless it's like made like really risky spots that you're sort of juggling. Like if you've got like 5 bad classes in there, then you've always got to fit some in. That's not great. It might be unhealthy for you if you try to sneak in as a Shaman against 4 Warlocks. That might be hard work. It'd be like we only have 1 or 2 Rogues at the moment, so I don't have much problem fighting against them to get in. But if we had like 4, then that might be a bit more hard work, or it would have been during progress. But then judging those raid spots now is completely sort of a massive guess, because you've no idea how the melee balance is going to flip, especially with 2 new classes coming in. Even if Demon Hunters come in or a class like a fan favorite, you're not going to be able to like fill out your entire melee with them, because at the end of the day they're going to they've only got a 20-second interrupt. So what melee do is the whole interrupt rotation that they seem to be like super keyed in on. That's what makes melee good. Demon Hunters can't do it. Yeah, there'll always be that class that's got that thing that makes a tier good. So DK's was Hellfire, like Blackrock was Hunters and Moonkins, and a little bit of Rogue. So next tier it could be anything, like Launch Legion, it could be Shaman, you never know. I mean, I'd be amazed if they actually let that go, but it could be. Most likely it's going to end up being Demon Hunters. I mean, if we're honest, that's the new class, so that always ends up you get something like that. But the thing is with with Demon Hunters, everyone sees it and it's cool. Like, I mean, I've seen it. It's pretty cool. Some of the stuff that's in there. So, like, I've got to be honest. I look at it and I think that would be really fun to play. But when everyone immediately re-rolls to it, that's a lot of like confidence to put in yourself to be able to immediately pick up a class and be good enough to do that. Because it's going to be brand new. There's going to be no resources for it whatsoever aside from what comes in the beta. One Death Knight for Hellfire sounds scary, especially in the late bits as well. Zul'Alan Manoroth with only one Death Knight wouldn't be pleasant. You could have to do like a lot of work to get it working on Zul'Alan Manoroth. I think we stuck with the same 3DKs from start to finish for us. We've got a new one now and one's leaving. The problem with Mage Hunter stacking though isn't whether or not they got tools, it's just the most popular classes. And they do the most damage. If Hunters and Mages aren't doing the most damage, then it'll be like Hunters and Warlocks or Mages and Warlocks. There's always going to be a pure class that's going to be doing the most. And it's almost always arranged. The tools are something they need to spread out. But even like the tools being spread out, if you think about it, if like at the base level when you start a tier, mages were doing crazy damage, hunters were doing crazy damage as well with the gear. Even if, say, elemental had ice block, just consider at the base level when you're doing that progress and you have the choice between an elemental who can do it or you can have a hunter who can do it and can one-shot ads with its ridiculous damage that's on burst, you're still going to take that one if you have the choice. Which means if you're already in a guild and you prove that you're good at the class or whatever, that's fine and dandy. But when you're looking at guilds who are recruiting, then that causes like you don't see them going, I really, really want X class. I really want the best class for this job. If we get another one, then I guess we can take that. That's just the raiding world, though. And like Crash Lightning just seems like meat cleaver from Warriors again. Everything that I've seen, it just like spews Warrior. You press Crash, you spell AoEs, same as meat cleaver, and it costs resource as well. I can guess, just like Whirlwind does to cause meat cleaver. If it does that though, and it marks things, and we can just press a spell and it cleaves everything wherever they are, that would be amazing. Would basically just be flying over. seems like they took all these mechanics out of Fury Warrior because they don't like it, and they've just given them to us with a different name, and, well, hopefully we like it, you never know. And if we don't, well, I'm sorry, we've already worked the class out, so you're just going to have to play with it for an expansion. Oh no, they keep execute. Execute's good, they like that. We don't get that stuff. It's possible it could work like that. If it does, then that'd be cool. If. But again, it's another thing they haven't, like, they've put no context, and they're like tweeting half-finished tooltips about it, so we haven't really got any judge, and that's really important to get like an overview on something like that. If we become Fury, though, I would not be impressed. I played Fury like the last few weeks, and it's not nice. I can't see myself spending a lot of time playing Fury, even with a different name. Fury right now is just far too much RNG on top of RNG, which is what, like, the front impression is of how our class works now. Whether or not that ends up being the case is a completely different question. But we've got to wait for that, really. Anyway, it was a fun, like, hour or so. I'll be getting that document up in the next, like, day or two, and I'll be recording with Bay in like 2 days, 3 days. That'll be up at the weekend, I guess. So you'll see me complain even more about it, I guess, in the long run. And I'll be hammering the devs on Twitter with any luck, get some answers. And if not, well, when the beta comes, then I'll do the same. But I'm gonna shut the stream off since it's 3 AM here, and take the spamming purge on Skype to see whether or not he's happy about it, which, from the sounds of it, he's not. So, it's fun, everyone, and I'll see you on Discord and IRC, and I'll probably do these a bit more often now, with more information coming out. So, I'll see everyone next